Take a walk with destiny. Walk on the trail of your life. Live your soul's purpose. Hosted by Jessica Joins, each show is dedicated to revealing your true calling and living a life of fulfillment. Each guest brings inspirational stories that help clear the way for your higher calling. You can listen to her show once a month on the uimediaapp.com, WDJY 99.1 FM, WTTA 101.2 FM, Talk10FM.com, Facebook Live on United Intentions, Spreaker, and many other platforms. Want to join the conversation? Call in now at 678-495-4345. So let's unwind, rest your mind, and let your spirit free to find your soul purpose.
Hello, and welcome to Soul Purpose with Jessica Joins, the show where we help you uncover and step into living your soul purpose. I want to give a special shout out to my friends at WDJY 99.1 FM and my friends at WTTA 101.2 FM in Kentucky and Ohio. How is everyone doing? It is the last show of 2020, and it happens to be both the winter solstice and, if you're an astrology fan, the Great Conjunction, which I don't know if I fully understand everything that entails, but it's basically like the dawning of the age of Aquarius, aka like a new consciousness. You know, no big deal. No big deal. We're just entering into the golden era of consciousness today, and don't we need it after the year that we've had? Whew, it's like, exhale. It has been such a challenging year for so many. You know, there's this saying that the pain is the portal, meaning that, you know, the pain is often the way through. You can't awaken without some bit of suffering, but it doesn't mean that makes it any easier. Knowing that potentially something incredible is on the horizon, or knowing that there is a purpose to it. Knowing that the universe is progressive, therefore we are always moving forward, even when it looks like it doesn't. But with like any year, you know, this is a real time of reflection. And I know we don't want to look back on this year. I know so many of us are ready for this year just to be done, just to move on. But I do encourage you to find a moment, you know, in the next week or so, and just really get clear on everything that this year has revealed to you, because it has been so much. It's been so profound. None of this has been an accident. And for everyone, there has been a unique message, especially for you, showing to you changes to make in your life, showing you aspects of yourself that no longer serve. And the messages are there if you're willing to look at them and see them and acknowledge them. So I encourage you to take some time to do that, to really look at what this was about for you, to get the very difficult lessons that have been put forth. And so that you can enter next year from a fresh start, a fresh perspective, as a new version of you. And so if you get a moment to do that, I do encourage you to do that. But for now, and as we've been doing all year long, we have been breaking down the lessons in my book, Dare to Believe. And tonight we are on lesson 8, which is inspired action is how you manifest. And now we spoke last time about being in divine flow. And this step is the action part of that, of taking action from a place of divine flow, of allowing the universe to guide you and to be willing to listen to what it's saying. And to the action being the key word, be in action about that. So as I said, there's always this current of energy, the universe. You can think of it as your partner in anything that you're looking to manifest. It's always working with you. And you're either working with it or against it. And when you're in it and you've invited it in, you're getting signs, clues, you're getting these nudges, you're getting intuitive hits about things to do towards the manifestation of your purpose. And so this lesson is really in those moments when you're getting those nudges, when you're being given a sign, when you have that moment of inspiration, that you act upon it. You don't question it, you don't wait, but you act. And this lesson is also really about trusting in the universe's plan. While at the same time, you might have a master plan, but you can't be attached to the master plan. So it's allowing yourself to be spontaneous and to get into action that's within divine flow, even if it doesn't mesh up to the plan that you have in place, or how you thought it was going to happen, or how you thought it was going to be. It's really allowing yourself to be led and knowing that the universe has the plan, you might not, and to trust in that. You're responsible for holding the vision. You're responsible for taking the action that you're being guided to take. But you don't have to figure it all out. It is not up to you. And I dare say you won't manifest the highest life of your potential, your purpose, if you act as if it's all up to you and that it's all on your shoulders. It doesn't work that way. So this step is a lot about letting go of any stubbornness or any fixed ideas that you have. It's about trusting and believing in your intuition as much as, I dare say, as you do reason or logic or how you think things are supposed to go. Allowing the real higher principles of manifestation to have their way with you, to really let the magic to unfold, to be in that true synchronicity with the universe. Okay? And so our 3 and 3, our 3 truths, and then our 3 things you can do on this lesson right now are the following. You ready? The first truth is taking inspired action is essential to manifesting your vision. That's because the universe knows how this is all going to work out. The universe has the plan. So being in the action as guided, because, still a physical reality, you got to take action if you want to manifest your dreams, is essential. Okay? Truth number 2 is that inspired action, it's light. It's loving. It often feels exciting. It's not this heavy, burdensome, or even fearful energy, or you should do this or you should do that. It is often something that feels highly motivating and inspiring to you. It's kind of like, oh my gosh, why didn't I think about that? Oh, I'm going to do that right away. That's really what inspired action feels like, what it tastes like. Truth number 3 is that it comes most often via your intuition. Your intuition is how the universe communicates to you. And while sometimes you might get nudges via the advice another person gives you, it most often comes via your intuition. So what are the 3 things you can do right now? The first is just to invite it in, okay? Invite it in. Invite the universe in to guide you. Invite in inspired action. Pretty simple. The second thing you can do is practice listening to your intuition. That softer, quieter voice. Just practice hearing it. We listen to this all the time. Practice listening to it. And the third and final thing you can do is loosen your grip and attachment to your own plans. Let the universe's plans unfold. Okay, so that's it. So we have got a great guest for you tonight. I am so excited because this is not only a friend of mine, but someone I really respect and just love what he's been doing this year and how purpose has unfolded in his life. Ingo Rauth is a professor. He's the founder and host of the School of Becoming, an online education program dedicated to supporting professionals in going from paycheck to purpose. He's also a professional coach and a lecturer serving at the University of Toronto Rotman School of Management, as well as IE Business School, which is Madrid, Spain. He teaches students and professionals in organizational leadership and personal development. And I'm so excited to have him here. Welcome to the show, Ingo.
Hi, Jessica. Thank you so much for having me.
I am so glad that you're here, and especially on the last show of what has been a challenging year for many. And we got connected in the beginning of the year when you were launching School of Becoming, which is something I want to talk to you about in a second. But first, and I always love to ask my guests, because this is a show about purpose, can you talk a little bit about, purpose is such a buzzword nowadays. What does purpose mean to you, Ingo?
I think the most simple way for me to frame it is doing what you love, and through that, serving something that's bigger than you.
Yeah. I love that you said doing what you love. I know we've had so many great conversations, but there's always like these kind of fancy definitions around purpose, and like there's concentric circles to figure it out. And I am now remembering that like we have the same definition, and it's so like simple. It's what you're told since you're a kid, like do what you love, follow your passion. But the reason we're having this conversation is most people don't. Even, like we just don't. And we'll talk about that in a second for whatever reason. But I love that you said that. And do you mind just sharing a little bit with us, with our viewers, so they can get a sense of it? I was digging in some of your stuff online, and you talked about having 27 jobs and 35 moves in the search of fulfillment. Can you talk us a little bit about like what your story to finding purpose, if you found it, or where you're on the journey, like what's that look like for you?
Yeah, I think initially, I think everybody experienced that. Like in your 20s, you're just like want to prove yourself. You want to go out there in the world. You want to be successful. You want to have an income, whatever it is. And then over time, I realized like, yeah, that's not it. Is this everything there is to it? And I think that was in my later 20s where I realized like what I was doing was not that fulfilling. Although I was good at it and I was appreciated for it and I had a good income, it felt repetitive and it felt like I was not doing anything with my life other than like producing stuff. And then, fast forward, I tried different things. It took me a while to figure it out. And I stumbled on what I now see as my purpose by accident. It wasn't like until years later, I was doing a PhD. And one day my supervisor came to me and asked me, hey, could you like take over this class? Now, to that point, I'd never like lectured in a formal setting. And so I was like, yeah, sure. And I went in there, and that first kind of encounter with the students and was kind of a first hint. It felt good. I was excited about it in contrast to everybody else, because everybody else didn't want to like necessarily lecture or engage in a classroom. They were much more excited about research. And for some reason, I felt this was really fulfilling. Although to that point, I hated education in terms of like, I didn't like sitting in a classroom. And what I learned through this engagement with the students is that there was something more to it. It wasn't just about like me like talking about stuff that I know. It was actually having a conversation, and that conversation can be transforming. And that's something that I learned over the years being an educator and investing more time to it. And basically a very long story, very short, but it was about like moments in which I felt like I was connected to myself and I was connected to what I was doing and like the people I was doing it with.
Oh,
and
wow.
So.
And then in your 20s, like what were you doing? What was the job that you had then that you started out doing?
I started out like, I'm born in Germany. So I was 19 years old. I had to go to military service, and I did military service and did that for a couple of months. And then I went into thinking about, okay, what do I want to do next? And for some reason, I thought about digital animation, and that turned into graphic design, UX design. And then my first job after military service was 3D animation, and then UX, UI design. I was studying that, moving around, leaving my hometown for the first time, moving to Hamburg in the north of Germany, and starting to work with that. And I had a lot of fun doing it, but wasn't really concerned with anything in relation to purpose at that point.
And it's so funny because like so many people, like that would be the dream job, to get into like 3D animation and doing all that. And that's why, like I say, it is unique to you and what you love is unique to you. And it sounds like, that obviously wasn't it. And then you got onto pathway of what it was. So we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we're going to be back with more with Ingo in just a second. This is Soul Purpose with Jessica Joins, and we'll be right back.
This is Kurt Arsenault of Arsenault Advisory Group. Do you make a six-figure income but live paycheck to paycheck? You're not alone. Many six-figure income households will buy too much home and too much car, creating tremendous financial stress that builds debt when you should be building wealth. If you make six figures and live paycheck to paycheck, visit arsenaloadvisory.com and download our free ebook titled I Make Six Figures and Live Paycheck to Paycheck. You have nothing to lose and potentially everything to gain. Visit arsenaloadvisory.com today.
Welcome back. This is Soul Purpose with Jessica Joins. Really quick, I want to remind everyone that you can stay updated with all of our uncensored content at uimedianetwork.org. And also, hey, we want to take your questions right now. Ingo and I want to hear from you. So call in live if you have a question for either one of us at 678-495-4345. And we're back with Ingo. And you were talking about, like me, by the way, different career. I started in advertising, and you have this feeling when I first started out, I was like, I can't believe I'm going to do this the rest of the days of my life. Like, I kind of panicked, and I think so many people are just like, oh, yep, it's just a job, and they have like a different mindset. But it sounds like you were kind of, if I'm hearing you correctly, a bit like me. Like, you thought, oh God, no, I'm going to have to figure this out. Like, what was that kind of experience like for you when you're in this like animation job and you're like, oh no, this isn't it? What was that like for you?
Yeah, I think the animation stuff was just job was just like a stopover, and then I went into UI, UX, and web. And I still remember it was a day where it was a Wednesday, and my boss at the time, he was like, "Yeah, Ingo, we have this really important client, and we gotta get a pitch together for tomorrow, and like we need these and these mock-ups of this and this website, and you have 24 hours." And I knew, okay, this is an overnight job once again. Here we are again, and I was like, why am I doing this? Like, there was like, I felt like this is like, yes, it's nice pay, but it just feels strenuous. It doesn't feel life enhancing. And looking back, I would say like, it's this growing awareness that like the only thing that you have in your life to invest is your lifetime. Right? Everything else is an outcome of that, like how much money you make and like how much money you can invest of that money. It always starts with you investing time. And at the time, it didn't feel like this was time well invested. And so I moved on like through various jobs, always asking like, why am I doing this? This somehow stuck with me. And really like being fascinated by change, by development, and hoping or always like thinking that there is a better tomorrow. And like with the jobs that I had, sometimes I felt blocked. Sometimes I didn't feel like people that I worked with had great aspirations, but realizing that the organization that they were in was blocking them, or they felt blocked by it. And so there was always this kind of nagging feeling or questions like, okay, is there a better way? How can we make this better? Is this everything there is for my own life as well as for the people that I engage with? And so over the years, there was this growing awareness that like what I really thrive off is having conversations with people, supporting them, empowering them. And I also saw that at university, like one of the things that I really like to ask my students, because it was a question that bugged me at the time. It's like, okay, when you graduate, what's the thing that you want to do? And even in an MBA class, about 70 to 80% don't have a real answer about like something they want to do or that excites them. And I felt very much the same at the time. So it kind of sent me off that quest in a way. Yeah.
Do you think, because I have so many questions, because like what we're talking about is so uncommon, like so many people have the journey that we've had, but most of them, many people don't make the pivot that you and I made. Like they just go, this is life, see it through. And like, what do you think it is at a societal level? Like, do we prioritize the wrong things? Like for me, it was like the survival consciousness thinking, like I've got to make a lot of money. I got to make sure I'm set up for that. I didn't even imagine anything for myself outside of corporate world. I got to climb this ladder. Like that's what you do. Like I never even thought like, well, am I going to do what I love? Are you kidding me? Like, I don't even know what that is. Like I haven't explored that question. Like, what are your thoughts about that? Cause I know you live and breathe this like too, but like, if you look at it, like, when you're not fulfilled, you're stressed, anxious, like, you know, it's like a problem. It's a problem. Like, what do you think is going on there at the big kind of zoom out level?
Yeah, so like on a zoom out level, I just finished writing a paper with Chip Conley on midlife and how we develop a different I can't even pronounce the word, developmental stages. So how we are going through life as people. And it turns out like in your 20s, you're still very much concerned with showing that you can and that you're capable. In your 30s to 40s, depending on your life and your life experience, you realize like, so now I know I can, and I've shown that I can. What now? Like, what do I want to do with my life? And it turns out this question, like it's kind of a purpose shift, if you like, that happens during that time. It comes up for everyone. Like everyone has it. A few are lucky and they're doing what they find purposeful, and that's great, right? But I also want to draw attention to the fact that purpose doesn't have to be about work. Right. You can manifest, you can like engage in purposeful ways outside of work. But in the societies that we live, a lot of the things that we do are about work. We spend about 80% of our like time at work. And so it becomes this major thing that a lot of things gravitate around or that we focus on. So we kind of have this demand on work. And that's relatively new. It wasn't there in our parents' or grandparents' generation who were happy to make an income, right? So the purpose was a little bit outside work. But it also shows us how conflicted that is, because when you have invested in years of college, university, or in a career, climbing the career ladder, and you realize at some point, hey, this isn't it, the change and the cost affected with it, like it becomes very costly, right? So it becomes really hard for us to change. And I remember like every time I realized this isn't it, it's almost like at the end of a relationship, you realize that isn't it, but you invested like years into that relationship and getting together and like fantastic life. And then all of a sudden I think like, hey, I just should give this up, really? And so I think this is where the barrier comes in, where we like have to make a decision for ourselves. And I think oftentimes people think we have to break with the past in order to find purpose. But I think looking back at my life, I realized that any of the jobs that I had could have become purposeful if I would have known what I know now.
Right. I have this theory too, and all of that totally makes sense to me. And like, I get the life state, like all of that. And by the way, I want to read that paper. And so bear with me on this, like, because there are people that like they knew what they wanted to do as a kid and they go for it. They go for their dreams. You know, if I can pick any myriad examples. And then there's people that are on our path that don't, right? And we discover it later in life or not at all, right? And to me, I kind of have a theory that there's certain spiritual lessons that people on our path have signed up to learn. If I ask you that, what do you think some of the spiritual lessons are that you've had to learn via taking this longer journey to purpose rather than like having a dream as a kid and just going for it? If I just put you on the spot and ask you that, what would you say?
Okay, spiritual lessons. So for me, spiritual is the thing that gives me life, or that like kind of affirms my life. And when I think about that in terms of what are the lessons, lessons where like don't take things as serious. I grew up in a like German family and everything was very serious. And I think, and I still struggle with this sometimes, like, right? It's like I take things way too serious. And I realized that life becomes a lot more fulfilling if you don't. And it becomes also very freeing. And so I also learned that freedom is something that gives me joy, like expressing my freedom, not having an agenda, and just like practicing or doing what I love is a tremendous luxury. It's even, for me, it's more important than a paycheck, right? But that said, we all have to make money. What else did I learn? It's that I think there's not one truth. And so as a kid, my mom was like, I was growing up in a Catholic family. We always went to church on Christmas. And my mom, for example, she really believes in God and angels. And I didn't really believe in that. It might be part of why I became a scholar. But like what I learned is that it doesn't really matter how you make sense of the world and what is happening. The most important thing is that what you believe in, no matter if it's a God or if it's like in the universe or whatever it is, the most important thing is that it gives you hope and supports you. And so that's something that I had to understand for myself, which I clearly didn't understand earlier. And I was a little bit like, even to my mom, I didn't always was the most affirming. But what I understood now is that it's super important to have a belief. It's super important to invest in your belief and act in regards to it. Because if you don't, you depreciate it. And so whatever you believe is, it's important to have one and to hold it up, especially in times like this.
Yeah. So what I want to know, what this curious mind is wanting to know, what is the living freer Ingo look like that's different from the past, less free Ingo? Like what does that look like? I'm so curious.
So the less free Ingo wouldn't have said yes to this, because I think I shared with you that I was so concerned about what people think of me, and if I frame things the right way, and if I'm able to articulate myself the right way, and if I'm able to say the right things, and all these kind of things. And that was a huge thing for me. And last year I did a little experiment around this because I wanted to get rid of it. And this year I had plenty of opportunity to practice this, both in the School of Becoming, but also now here. And so that's certainly a thing. That said, I'm not at the end of this journey. I still overthink things. And something that I have to remind myself continuously, it's don't strategize, build from the now. And the thing is that I learned, as an academic and somebody who's very analytical, I always think about the future and okay, how would this work out and what would be the best way to go about these things? But there's an indefinite amount of possibility. And if you don't embrace the now, if I don't embrace the now, I don't see them. And you sometimes get stuck because you make this future. I oftentimes made this future as this big thing that was so idealistic and so loaded with aspirations that it almost crushed me in the now, because I felt how I'm going to do this, and it will never be as perfect. And so embracing a little bit more of the now, and really I wrote that down a couple of times in my journal, really embrace the now. And embrace what you love doing, which always has been a little bit of a struggle for me, because at the end, if you're somebody that likes to support people, it's sometimes really hard to actually support yourself first. But only from that, and you probably heard it before, you can get the energy that you need to support others. And I don't know, Jessica, how this is for you, but one thing that I learned this year, and that gives me more energy, is focusing a little bit more on myself, although it feels selfish. But at the end of the day, I realize that it actually gives me more energy and allows me to be of greater service.
I love that. And that kind of building from the now, I think is how you said it, is actually so much. I don't know if you saw earlier, but you're talking about the lesson that we're talking about tonight is totally exactly what that's about, being open to receive all the different possibilities. Because when we get so fixed with a storyline or how it's supposed to be in our, I think we really block ourselves from, getting to experience life to its fullest, more than anything, really. But, I don't know what are I think this would be helpful to our viewers. Are there one or two things that you do to try to create from the now or be in the now?
Yeah, so creating from the now, one, I'm a huge fan, a proponent of journaling. Just created a new course around that to help people with that around the new year. But one thing that I always do or try to do is when I realize I'm over concerned with the future, it's I'm writing all of that down. And just to get it out of my head and onto a piece of paper in order to give myself some distance to it. And then park that for a moment and really focus on where I am right now. Another great thing that a lot of people say is meditation. I love meditation, mindfulness practice, which is super helpful in just focusing on the now, because I believe, and a lot of people say this, it's the only place where you can experience happiness. You can't conceptualize happiness. You can only experience it. And where you find it is in the now, right?
I love that. I'm a big fan of meditation too. That was great. So we're going to talk more with Ingo when we come back from this short break. This is Soul Purpose with Jessica Joins, and we'll be right back.
This is Kurt Arsenault of Arsenault Advisory Group. You just got married, but you may not realize that your money did as well. Is your spouse a spender or a saver? Will you purchase or rent a home? Finances aren't always fun to talk about, but getting on the same page with your partner and having real conversations about your goals will pave the way for a secure future. If you have recently tied the knot, visit arsenaladvisory.com to download our free ebook titled 7 Smart Money Marriage Tips. Visit arsenaladvisory.com to get your free ebook today.
Welcome back. This is Soul Purpose with Jessica Joins. Hey everyone, don't forget to like, comment, share, and support, and email contact@uimedianetwork.org to know how to sponsor this show, because you want to, right? And then also don't forget to connect with us online, everyone. You can follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Speaker, and other podcasting platforms such as the UI Media Network. And so we're back with Ingo. Ingo, I want to switch into talking about this the incredible School of Becoming that you created this year. Can you tell everyone a little bit about how this came about and what it is?
Sure. So there's a very long story and a very short story to it, and I try to find the middle way here. So the very long story is, or part of the very long story is that I love education. I see education as my purpose, and focusing on supporting people in becoming who they feel like they want to be. Now, I didn't know really how to go about that. I did a wonderful internship at the beginning of the year at a place called the Modern Elder Academy in Baja California. And if you don't know about that place, check it out. It's a wonderful place to be. And I was very fortunate because I became a fellow there, and I got to know like the people there. And there were 3 founders, or there are 3 founders, and each one of them has a different role. So one is there for experience, one is there for education, and one I would say is education / the visionary. And like just being with them, I realized that education is really the thing. Like it just like the joy that I got from watching him, and shout out to Jeff if you hear this, like was amazing. And I told you this already. And it really confirmed, okay, this is what I want to do. So I came back to Toronto, and I thought like, okay, I really want to double down in education. And I talked to a couple of people at the university, and then COVID happened. And I was like, okay, guess like we do a little bit of online education, and there's not much happening. Universities were regrouping, and everybody thought, okay, what should we do now? Should we do anything about it? And they cut back on having external lectures and stuff like that. So it wasn't really the best time. But I wasn't too concerned about it. And one day I sat down with a friend who's an online entrepreneur, and she is a solopreneur, and we talked about our business and how it went, how it's going. And I said, like, yeah, I don't have to worry too much. I still have my teaching gigs, not a big problem. And for her, it wasn't like a big problem either. But what we realized is that a lot of the people that are our friends or my girlfriend, they were really affected by COVID. And later that day, I thought like, hey, I know a lot of people from university that actually can support like small and large businesses and people that are challenged by this uncertainty that comes from this like really challenging period of time. Through like what they know and through what they lecture. But the problem is that outside of university, that stuff isn't available. So yeah, I kind of had this idea, and I was thinking, yeah, maybe I should do it. So as a first prototype, I reached out to a couple of people that I know of LinkedIn and said like, hey, I have this idea. Would you be interested in supporting me and putting together a program to support people going through these uncertain times? And to my surprise, a lot of people wrote back and said like, yeah, I'm happy to donate a lecture, no problem. And Jessica, I know you were one of the first, so thank you for doing that.
Oh, thank you.
So yeah, 24 hours after I sent these emails out and these messages via LinkedIn, I was like, oh my God, now I have to do this. And it almost felt like a little bit like an idea hangover, because I realized that all of a sudden I had a job. I had something that I had to do because I promised it. And so in the matter of a week, I put together a website, figured the technology out, like some things weren't thought out at all. Some things I was wondering, will this actually work? And I tried everything just to put it together and like share it with my network, and people were interested, and started this 4-week program that was designed to deliver 24 sessions on navigating uncertainty. And with this support, like there were a lot of people, there were 22 people that came on and devoted an hour of their time delivering high-end lectures. We had a couple of people that I never thought like would do this for free and would engage in this, doing it. And at the end of this program, we had about 900 people who actually came to these lectures and sit with us live, engaging in the content, which is amazing. And so, yeah, at the end of it, I was like, okay, what now? Do I want to continue this? Do I not want to continue this? It's not what I originally intended to do. Right. Yeah. We talked before the show, like how the ego gets into the way. And like, for me, like I wanted to like educate people, and all I was doing there, or what am I doing there, is to be the host, but I also love learning. And I was like, yeah, maybe I should continue this. And I had a conversation with a couple of people that were regulars on the show, and I was like, okay, let's do this another month. And then I did it another month, and I did it another month, and I did it another month. And now we just produced the 4th season, and we covered many different topics. We had amazing guests from different universities, business school, TED speakers, TEDx speakers, entrepreneurs, and others. And like, it has been super fulfilling. That said, they didn't make any money. So
I know that was
does not always come with money, but yeah.
You so like today, and I think this is just like incredible on so many levels, because I know when I did it with you, I think in March or April, I forget. You were doing it for free. Is that still the case, or you plan? I'm just curious, because it's such a huge service.
Yeah,
maybe that's your purpose, I mean, I don't know, but do you think about that? Because for right now, hey viewers, you can just go to this, and we'll make sure you have the details before we say goodbye to Ingo. But kind of incredible.
Yeah, thanks. I think it's one of the lessons from this year. It's like, and I journaled about that the other day, because I was thinking that purpose can be costly. So for me, it feels purposeful to do this program, but it doesn't pay the bill. It doesn't pay for itself. We had like a call for donation, and like in some month, it almost like covered the base cost, and that doesn't include my labor. It just includes technology.
Yeah.
Another month, it didn't pay anything. And so for me, like the question is, and that's really a question of belief a little bit. Okay, is this worth doing, or can I find a way to make what I want to do in a purpose, or what I find purpose in a way that it actually pays for my livelihood? And right now it doesn't. But I think for me, going forward, 2021 is about figuring this out and running a couple of experiments. And I always think that when you do something that you find purposeful, that you're passionate about, and others find purpose in as well, that there is a way. However, like my first idea didn't work out. Like some speakers suggested ideas on what I could do, and I will try that out going further and like try to figure it out piece by piece by piece. And I think it's time well invested, although it might not pay like big, at least to start with.
Yeah. Well, whenever you're on these journeys, I always find, and I don't know if this has been your case, like there's, peaks and then there's valleys. What were some of your peaks and valleys on this? Because I think the war stories are good. It's not all like roses.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. I mean, I can share one that is really fresh. Like 2 weeks ago, I was in the kitchen with my girlfriend, and I really had this breakdown. I was crying. I was like feeling really, really bad. I was like, this is such a, I won't use the word, like, why is this? Like, why is it so hard? And I was really like, it took me a while to catch myself. And my girlfriend like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I'm like, don't do anything. It just has to get out. And it felt so hard because it was something that I truly believed in, something that I really, really wanted to do and that I have a lot of joy doing. But at the same time, I had to realize that the economics of it don't work, and I can't sustain this in the way it is. And the challenge is not so much that there isn't another way. The challenge was that I had to give up on my preconceived notion of how it's going to work out. And that's hard because when I do that in that moment, like I feel hopeless because this vision, and you talked about vision in the beginning, this vision in terms of how exactly it's going to work, that is destroyed. So you still have this aspiration. And I think sometimes it's really hard to distinguish between like having a long-term ambition or vision versus the exact execution of it. And this exact execution, in my case, gives me a lot of security. And every time I have to let go of that, every time I have to like face that it's not working, that's hard. That's really hard. Like, although I know this, I still cry.
Yeah. Oh my God. I like the amount of times laying on the floor crying in the last like 6 years of building my own, because like 6 years ago, I was a global CMO, and the journey, like you, it continues to unfold, right? But the amount of times like crying, like it is an exhilarating journey. It's such a rewarding journey, but it is like a soul journey. That's why I call it soul purpose, because it's a soul journey. When you're really, I think, in it, like I know you are. And so I feel you on that, And what do you, if you had to guess right now, because sometimes like you might, like, what do you think the lessons are that you're signing up to learn via this journey,
Oh, yeah. Don't take myself too serious. I already know that life flows when I trust. And sometimes when there's a lack of trust, when I don't have this gut feeling, I talked a little bit about my story. And so sometimes I have these ideas and like the emotion that comes with it, like is almost taking me over. Like I don't sleep very much. I just work because I'm so convinced that this will work. But if there's a lack in that, if there's a lack in this like initial emotional drive, I start to question it. And what happens then is I start to overthink it. And when I start to overthink it, it builds up this monstrosity of requirements that I'm not able to fulfill that almost crush like my enthusiasm for it. And so like one of the big lessons is like to actually just trust it, just do it. And this year, for the first time in my life, which was another lesson, I engaged a psychotherapist. And I love psychology. I love working with people like that because it really helps to get an outside perspective. And it was really interesting working with her. And one thing that I realized is that I like this pressure that I put on myself was and still is a constant. And finding a way to deal with that pressure is something that I take from this year, which was to render the things that I do more as an experiment, and with that being okay with it not being perfect. Like, I don't know, through my upbringing, like perfectionism, like exerting a lot of pressure on myself to perform at a certain level, it was always there. And like, yeah, the biggest lesson from this year is like, okay, I know by seeing it as an experiment, I can like let go a little bit, and being more comfortable with that is a challenge that I'm like currently taking on and trying to like engage in. Even right now, I hear like myself talking and I think like, oh my God, what are you talking about? But that's part of it.
I'm glad that you are. It's so beautiful. And you like saying that right there is helping so many people. And I know the whole perfectionism. I've worked so hard on perfectionism. I don't know if I'm in recovery yet, but I think like I'm kind of like, I would kind of say I think I'm in recovery with it. But I so feel you. I can be so hard on we're so hard on ourselves. We just like I'm so with you on that. Really quick, so we only have like a minute or so left. One, I want to know I want you to let people know how they can take part in School of Becoming. And then I just want to know like what's on the horizon.
All right. So if you want to check out the School of Becoming, go to schoolofbecoming.org or check out our YouTube channel on youtube.com/School of Becoming. There you can find all of our past episodes and future episodes. If people want to reach out, you can reach me at Ingo@schoolofbecoming.org. And what's on the horizon, we will, I'm in the process of creating a new program for the first quarter of 2020. And if you're interested in future self, so how we think about the future, how do we become who we are, we're going to launch that program in mid-February. The other thing, and this is a shameless plug, we start with a small program from the 25th to the 31st of December on reviewing your year and doing a journal exercise. It's a journey, 7 days. If you want to join us on that, check out school-of-becoming www.teachable.com, and check out that course if you're interested in joining. Please join me. I'm looking forward to see you.
Thank you so much, Ingo. Thank you for being on the show. It was such a pleasure and honor to have you. Have an incredible rest of your year, and everyone check out School of Becoming. We'll be right back. This is Soul Purpose with Jessica Joins. I'm Jessica Joins, author, spiritual coach, and inspirational speaker. Understanding your soul purpose is the most important work you will ever do. It's the key to unlocking your true potential and happiness. And that's why I'm so happy to announce that you now have the opportunity to have your most important soul purpose questions answered by me live on air. That's right. I'll tackle your most important questions about how to step into living your life's true calling on my show, Soul Purpose with Jessica Joins. So if there are big questions or challenges you've been wanting answers to help with your soul purpose journey, here's your chance. Write to me at contact@uimedianetwork.org and you might get a chance to be featured on my show. Welcome back. This is Soul Purpose with Jessica Joins. Hey, everyone, don't forget to tune in tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern for the Health Matters Show, where naturopath Dr. Nelson Bulmash is going to interview physical therapist Bill Rauth. And if you just heard that commercial that I did on the break, this is what we're about to do. I'm so excited. We have one of our viewers who's come on live that I'd like to welcome to the show, Olivia DeDalt. Hello and welcome, Olivia.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, we're so glad that you're here. And FYI, I've done a little coaching with Olivia, and she is just an incredible spiritual seeker and light. And you had some questions that you wanted to ask live on air, Olivia. And so I'm going to turn it over to you and say, what's your question?
Okay, so I have a couple of questions for you, Jessica. My first one is, since I'm a college student and I'm on my path figuring out everything about myself and what I want to bring to the world. And as I'm trying to figure out my soul purpose in a college setting where I'm constantly learning new things about myself and the world around me, what advice would you have for me?
Yeah, well, the first advice I have is don't follow mine or Ingo's path. But when I was in college and when I was young, I was prioritizing, I hate to say the wrong things because I don't like the idea of right and wrong, but I definitely wasn't prioritizing like passion and what I love. I was prioritizing this kind of mindset of how to find a good job so I can survive this world, and for me, that led to a lot of unhappiness. So what I would encourage you to do is to get really curious about what you love. You might have some things that you already know, but I think college is a perfect time to really get curious about what lights you up, what you have high resonance with, and follow that. Many people are going to say, oh, you should do this or you should do that. The only one that knows the path of your true happiness is you. And your soul purpose is synonymous with what you wake up every day so ridiculously excited to do. You don't want your life to feel like it's a chore every day, that you're just getting up to go to some job you're lukewarm happy about. So what I would encourage you to do is, no matter, if it seems like it'd be something hard to do or unrealistic, if it's what you truly love, I encourage you to pursue that. Does that kind of help answer your question a little bit?
Definitely. Just leading with your heart.
Yeah. I mean, do you have ideas already about are there things in your mind that you are you weighing between a couple things, or are you just starting scratch? You're I don't know what I love. I'm going to try to figure it out. Where are you at with that?
I definitely think my path is towards helping others and just bringing light to wherever I am. But I think definitely narrowing that down to just what makes me happy, what brings me joy, figuring out things that bring me joy, experiencing more of those things is going to be really crucial for me to narrow down more.
And I'm feeling compelled to tell you this because one of the biggest ways the ego will mess with you, like ego doesn't want you to step into soul purpose. Like it's that voice of fear in your head that's just it's its job to mess with you because you're supposed to learn from it, okay, and rise above it. But one of the things, the ego's favorite storyline is, oh, but you'll never make money doing that, right? And I would say don't listen to that because you have no idea how that thing you love is going to be expressed in the world. It might not be a traditional path of which, doesn't currently look like a lucrative career choice. And beyond that, the universe wants you to be abundant, and what you love is not inherently tied to a path to poverty. So the storylines that might come from your parents, or your own head that say, yeah, but you're going to really struggle financially if you do that. Don't listen to that. You never know what the potential is for how it can be expressed and unfold. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love that advice.
What other questions do you have?
Question I have is, because of the pandemic and just 2020 has been a really wild year, I think, for everyone.
Yeah.
What advice would you have for college students and just kind of young people in general to manage all of the stress we're being exposed to and just kind of managing this tough circumstances that we've all been through?
I mean, my heart broke for, it breaks for everyone, but I was so breaking for all high school seniors. I really broke. And then first year college students. And then I was, then all college students. I'm college was for me, one of the most magical times of my life that I feel for you. And it's really, really hard right now. And a couple things come up to me, and I think at the end of the day, you've got to honor your own happiness. But look, if it's not working for you right now, it's okay, it'll always be there. Maybe it's time to take a break and focus on doing something else, But if it's no, I really want to stay in it and stay on course, I think you've got to figure out, different ways to find that connection. And, to experience, some of the things in more of a creative kind of way. I don't know if it's doing, unique things on Zoom or having a circle that, your tribe that you're all being really safe with, and so that you can honor one another and get together and do things, Beyond that, I think a lot of, meditation practices and other spiritual practices just to stay grounded. And this is not just for college students, but for everyone right now is really important. Have you noticed, are there just specific things that you're finding or you and your friends are finding particularly challenging?
I think in general, what I've heard from my peers and my friends is that it's just been a little bit lonely. And so I think finding ways to spend time with yourself that bring you closer to yourself, and just, being okay with all that time by yourself. I think that's been one thing in specific that we've all had to collectively work towards.
The loneliness.
Spending so much time by ourselves. Yeah, just feeling lonely and also feeling disconnected from others and feeling isolated. And I think what's helped me is being able to do things that are focused on myself. But instead of ignoring all those things that we have to face now that we're stuck alone, facing them head on is just something that I think we've all struggled with doing, because it's challenging to deal with things you're not usually having to deal with.
Yeah, it's so hard. I mean, look, I think it's also, as our prior guest is talking about, mental health, right? Do not have any shame about, there's so many online therapy, resources right now, no shame in that game. I think probably everyone in the world right now, is trying to use a therapist at this moment in time, so really using that kind of, but I think also, even though it's not the same to not be in person, but isolate doesn't mean don't communicate, not being in physical proximity with people. And so, I'd really recommend, it's who beyond your family, who are 2 or 3 friends that you just check in on each other once a day, once a week. And even though we all have Zoom fatigue and we're sick of technology, but keep talking and keep communicating with people, because it's not a time we have to be alone. I live alone, right? So I've spent a lot of time. You're not supposed to be with anyone outside your household. I'm like, it's me and my household, right? So I've spent a lot of time on my own this year, but it's don't stop talking. Don't stop and feel in and surrender to the loneliness. Like, don't try to avoid it or resist it, because it's just going to come out. Like, yes, it is normal to feel lonely and be sad as F about that right now. Yep. Mm-hmm. Acknowledge those feelings and lean into it. Okay. I then think too, it's like, I don't know, all the different, every school has their different thing, but it's like, if you can have, I have 2 friends right now, like we're all really safe. And so that we can like get together and, out of respect, if you can have like a pod, on that front that you can feel safe to get with, I don't know if that's what CDC recommends, but we got to keep our sanity.
True.
So, right.
Good advice.
Yeah. What else? Do you have any other questions for me?
I do. I really want to tune more into the gifts, my spiritual gifts that I feel like I am destined to offer the world. And, I think that's kind of what I feel called to do. But I want to know how I can figure out what those are and hone in on what those specific spiritual gifts are that I have.
Is there anything you're doing right now to tune into them?
I do volunteer on my own because that's something I enjoy doing and it brings me a lot of joy, and it kind of just puts me in a place of selflessness, which I think one of my gifts would be just to serve and not pay attention to myself and just, do things for other people. But yeah, that's kind of all I'm doing right now. And I'm trying to figure out what else I have.
Here's what I would do. If you're like ready to start understanding those, I would have a kind of a prayer and intention each morning. I would say, universe, I'm really ready to come to know and see more of my gifts. Show me what those are. I'm ready. And then really like feel yourself being open to being shown, to being guided, to being led into a deeper understanding of what your gifts are, right? So like that's step 1. And then like if you can, and if you have an idea about like what certain things are, I would explore them in the way that you are, you know what I mean? Because when you say spiritual gifts, are you even like talking like energy kind of stuff? Is it that kind of stuff, or is it more service gifts? You know what I mean?
I feel like I also have spiritual gifts that I'm trying to tap into.
That's what I thought.
Yes, I do have some clairaudience and clairvoyant experiences that I have encountered in my life. And yeah, so that's something else that I'd like to tune more into and understand better and tap into that. And kind of my intuition, strengthening that is something specific.
So for you, and it's a perfect time, like take some online classes, like literally like take some classes on energy healing or on channeling or whatever it is. I would totally go and look online and be like, what, because we have so much time on our hands right now, what classes do excite me and do I feel resonance around that I could take right now? So that's what I would do. We're about out of time, so I've got to say goodbye to you. But I just want to thank you for coming on and asking these questions because I know they help so many people. Thank you for being here, Olivia.
Thank you for having me, Jessica.
Thanks. So everyone, we're about out of time, and it's, wow, what a year. Thank you for being with me all year. I know it hasn't been easy. I know it's been really hard on a lot of you, but I just say keep the faith. If nothing more, this moment in time is about upping our faith, upping our ability to surrender, upping our belief muscle, and choosing to honor the divine purpose that's within each of us. Have a beautiful rest of your year, and I'll see you in January. This is Soul Purpose with Jessica Joins, saying goodbye for now.
We hope this episode helped you take a step closer to find your soul purpose. We will be back in 3 weeks on Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern on the uimediaapp.com WDJY 99.1 FM, WTTA 101.2 FM, Talk10FM.com, and Facebook Live on United Intentions, Spreaker, and many other platforms. Jessica Joins is happy to hear from you, so make sure you watch and share her show, and also write to her on Facebook with your comments, suggestions, and questions. Wherever you are in life, it's never too late to uncover what makes you happy. Let us help you find your soul purpose. The United Intentions Foundation and its associates take no responsibility for the opinions and statements made by the talk show hosts or their guests.